Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast with me, John Polley, or JP. Today, we've got a really interesting guest doing a session called Your Life is Your Medicine. So I want to welcome, first of all, Linda Barlow, who is an innate health, movement, and well-being coach coming to talk to us today. So, Linda, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, JP.
And I guess we should first start with that title is actually a quote from one of your favorite people, right? So explain the quote to us first of all and who it's from.
So the quote, "Your life is your medicine," comes from a brilliant practitioner in the US, Dr. Cassie Huckabee. I came across Dr. Cassie a few years ago and started following her work a bit more closely in the last 12 months. Your life is your medicine refers to the fact that every moment, every thought, every breath, every belief, every moment of joy, despair, and everything in between is medicating your life. So it doesn't matter whether it's a good thought or a negative thought or anything in between. It's medicating your life in the direction that thought or that feeling or that emotion takes you. So my personal work in the health space has brought me to this belief, and the more I explore it, the more it makes sense to me, and it fires me up in my work with my clients.
It is a really powerful statement. And, for me, it's like every input becomes medicine or not, as the case may be. And of course, the annoying thing about Dr. Cassie Huckabee is that she's still ridiculously young, and she's come up with that as well, right?
She is amazing. I think she probably looks even ridiculously younger than she actually is. She has come from the traditional medical background and worked her way through integrative medicine, naturopathy, lots of modalities to come to where she is. But the fact is that it all medicates you. So it is medicating you in the direction or every aspect of your life has a medicative effect on your mind, your body, your emotions, so every aspect of you. So whether we perceive it as being good or bad or positive or negative, it's still medicating us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, enough about Dr. Cassie for the time being, because we're talking to you today. Tell us, just give us a bit of a flavor of what was the catalyst to get you into the industry, because you were a school teacher.
I was. Most people that I come across in the health space have had some major trauma or epiphany or breakdown that has led them to where they are. I cannot really claim to have had such an event or incident in my life. I think I've always been in this space. I made it to about 2/3 of the way through year 12 before my careers teacher pressed me to make a decision on what I was going to do next. I had no idea. Nothing had really presented itself to me, and I just thought, well, phys ed teaching. I like sport. Teaching looks like a fun gig. Little did I know. So let's head in that direction. So I did my phys ed degree in the early 80s when everything was about excess. So exercise, food, hair, everything was excessive. And I taught for 3.5 years, which is not an extraordinarily long time. But I got the feeling that I did not want to be in the school system forever. And along came an opportunity to manage a corporate gym right from the get-go. So that's when I left teaching in the late 80s to manage corporate gym for Air Services Australia, who, you know, they, amongst other things, they have the aviation firefighters and the air traffic controllers and all of their support staff. So that was an amazingly fun ride for me for 20 years. It was my contract. So I pretty much ran the place as I wanted to run it. I eventually got some incredible instructors on board who had wonderful energy, and they brought new and interesting aspects to the whole running of the corporate sphere. But while I was doing that and running my own personal training business on the side, I really got the feeling that movement, as wonderful as it is, and as therapeutic, and it has so many benefits, it wasn't the only answer. And I was seeing my corporate gym members and my own clients were still having gut issues, hormone issues, other health issues that were hindering them in living their optimal life. So I was looking around for other, I guess, other modalities that could enhance their experience. So initially I went into the alternative health space and the postural correction and assessment space to look at ways that I could help people that were having issues, not just avoid those issues while keeping them fit, but to actually help them with them. So that led me down the track to practitioners such as Dr. Stuart Gillespie and Dr. Perry Nicholson from Stop Chasing Pain fame. And 5 years ago, I did it was just a one weekend functional medicine and functional movement course with those two gentlemen. And it really sparked a huge change in the way I view the human being as such. And let me backtrack a little bit further, because I met you in 2015 doing a mentorship with Ian O'Dwyer. And so with what I learned from OD and what I went on to learn from you was that everything is connected to everything, and to look not only at the human form in movement, but breath, fascial system. And if you don't breathe properly, you can't move. If you can't move, you can't do more intense efforts. And if you can't do more intense efforts, then you need to regress and go back. So learning from all of these amazing people along the way has gradually changed and evolved the way I work with my own clients.
So it's not that you don't use movement anymore. It's just now you have a different perspective on it has a place in the overall performance of humanity, as it were, but you see it a little less like a lot of us have come from this exercise industry. We think like it's like, if we can do this, it's like 80% of the job, as it were, in kind of producing great humans. Whereas actually we realize, yeah, it's slightly humbling in a way, isn't it? We've got this thing where, yeah, movement, and the thing that we know a lot about, the thing that we're really good at, and we've become great coaches in doing, not just great knowledgeable people, but actually it's got a place, and it's got a really important place. But that place maybe isn't quite as big as we thought it was when we were just doing movement. Would you kind of say it's somewhere around like that?
Absolutely. Well, of course, I have a love of movement right from the get-go. I was, according to my mother, climbing trees and shimmying up veranda posts before I could even walk. And Mum may have been prone to exaggeration, but I've always been a movement girl. Playing as a tomboy in the 60s and being right into sport and athletics through school. Movement is huge for me, and it's still a huge part of my life. But you do gradually come to realize that it's not the be all and end all. And in fact, you can improve your movement by looking wider and deeper And not only can your movement improve, but your whole life can take on a different sheen when you embrace the whole human rather than just the fitness aspect of it, if you were.
So we're hinting at where we're going, but I almost kind of prolong the agony just a little bit longer before we go into like this fascinating and really cool stuff, and where we might start with all the other stuff and how simple it all is. Let's just, before we leave movement, what do you think we need to add into the mix in terms of our understanding of movement? And I'm going to start you off with something and see where you take it. Because for me, it's what I was kind of missing was I learned how to exercise people. What I was forgetting was that what I should have done just before we started the movement part was go, what do you love? Like, how do they love to move? Because that's as big a facet of them getting great outcomes with their whatever their exercise or activity program is, as like just taking them through, well, this, we know that deadlifts do this, and we know that bench press does that. It's more like, do you even like that? And that's the thing that I found is like, I need to do stuff that is truly enjoyable on the inside, and it lights them up on the inside. What would you add to that when it comes, before we leave movement? Like, yeah, movement is amazing, and we absolutely would never want to lift it out of any well-being protocol. But where it's almost, I don't want to say where are we going wrong, but where are we going wrong?
Well, let's look at where we're going right. I think we have shifted a little in the fitness industry.
Oh, I love what you did there.
And learning from you and OD initially, as you say, finding out what really lights people up. I'll give you an example. One of my current movement clients was a Victorian and national throwing athlete in her teen years. So she loves nothing more than to throw the javelin and the shot put and so on. So guess what we include in every workout we do? We throw stuff around, and she loves it. So discovering that about her meant that I was getting out the heavy balls and the sandbells and the things that we could easily throw around, and not doing the traditional stuff with them, but throwing things and running after them, and she just, and it lights her up. I can see that, and she's kind of almost forgets about the sore knees and the gammy shoulder and so on, although we do take steps to take care of that. But doing things that she loves mixed in with a few other things that she needs means that she leaves each time with a really positive experience. So she's loved the movement that she's done. It keeps her wanting to move, and it just adds that spark of joy and that positive emotional feeling in her being while she's in the session with me.
I really like that. I call it you want to create a relaxed intensity, because it's just like they're enjoying it. Actually, it's more like going into a flow state than going into this hard work effort. Oh my God, I'm so exhausted and that was tough kind of mindset. It can be easily as intense, and if not more intense, because they're going into it in a slightly more relaxed state, because of the enjoyment. So you've got this perfect balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So yeah, if it feels playful, it feels enjoyable in that way, I feel like we're just doing a much better job for them from their mental and emotional health point of view, as well as their physical. But their outcomes have to improve as a result of that, and in fact they do improve as a result of that. So yeah, that's my thing, that I'm glad you're on the same page as me. Now, I know one of your things when it comes to movement is sometimes, to the chagrin of your neighbors, is you will get outdoors in the mornings and you will dance in your front garden on your suburban street?
Often, sometimes it's the backyard.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have an early morning routine that includes the early morning sun, which is why I use the front yard, because the sun comes into our front yard and I can get out there in my bare feet on the grass and dance and do my lymphatic and vagus nerve stimulation and my mobilizers that I learnt from you. And it starts my day off on a fabulous note. But the dancing, yeah, that's for me is the joy bubble of my day. It starts me off on the right foot, figuratively and literally.
Yeah. And so that's part of your daily movement, but also you mentioned a number of the other things. So the way we can get into those now as well. So you've gone, oh yeah, I like to do that. And the front garden gets the light in the morning. Why specifically is that important that you find your way to the light in the morning?
That opens up a whole big conversation, JP. So natural light is a really huge part of my health coaching. You'd be surprised at how many people don't get a lot of natural light, and particularly morning light in their day. It has untold benefits. I think, unfortunately, a lot of us have grown up, a lot of people in my era have grown up believing that the sun can cause damage. And I do have to say that that probably didn't start until the 80s. So I was very much a out in the sun kind of baby. But yeah, we've come to believe that spending too much sun exposure is really harmful. And I think that has had people scuttling for their sunscreen and to cover up and to not be in the sun. But, you know, if they are outside, to make sure they're in the shade and not being exposed at all. And that has swung a little too far the other way, because natural light in all its spectrums, but particularly first thing in the morning when we're getting exposed to a lot of infrared light, it can set us up for a good sleep at night, but B, it also signals to our body the timing of the wonderful cascade of hormones throughout the day that set us up for a really healthy circadian rhythm. So by that, I mean that we're awake and ready to start the day in the morning, and we wind down and we're able to get good sleep at night, and everything that goes on in between. So that first morning light is a really good way to set yourself up for a fabulous day, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
So are you saying that, so by the way, a little irony hit me as you were saying that. So you're like, oh, so there's lots of infrared at that time of the morning. And how hilarious humans are. Like, we're now doing infrared saunas, and yet there it is available every day from nature. And instead what we're doing is exposing ourselves to infrared saunas because we need to get this natural dose of infrared light, which is fully available in nature. Now, I get that it's a good backup if you're just not getting that, but man, we're a funny lot. So coming back to morning light, I think I want some specifics. So in other words, if the sun is behind the clouds, does it still count? Right? And are you saying that if we're out there, our hormonal process and our organ function, for example, those things, that they are boosted by the fact that you've put yourself in the light, in natural light in the morning, and how early and all that kind of thing? Talk to us about that.
So Dr. Cassie Huckabee basically says that if you can see your hand in front of your face, then that's enough light. In the city here, in Melbourne, I can walk outside and pretty much see my hand in front of my face anytime because of street lights around. But we're not talking about that kind of light. So daybreak, as soon as daybreak comes, which is usually before sunrise, but then especially sunrise is a really great time to get out. Not everyone is comfortable staring straight into the sun. So just being out there in the light and even exposing your belly to the light can be really beneficial. I usually give my clients a rule of thumb that if your shadow is longer than your body, then you're getting that good infrared light. But if you can be up early enough, or you can be outside at the same time as the sunrise, that is just magical time. So yeah, if everybody got outside and looked at the sunrise, that would be wonderful. However, I do get that there is such thing as being woken up by young children, and then your day is started whether you want it to start or not, and it's not always easy to walk out and gaze into the sun. But even if you can get 30 seconds, even if you can get 2 or 3 minutes, that will have untold benefits. It's just that signal that the body needs more than anything, more than being out there for 10 or 20 minutes. It's just to get that signal going.
So make us all uncomfortable now and talk about blue light. So let's say you wake up, and the first thing that you do, and I know I'm describing myself about 80% of the time, it's like I have to be very disciplined. But the first thing you do is you look at blue light, i.e. either your alarm's on your phone, so you do that, and that instantly pulls you in, or you kind of wake up, look at the time, and then go, all right, there, that email's coming from so-and-so. And before you know it, you're staring at the screen for 20 minutes before you even get out of bed. Let's give a scenario where we're right, and we're strong enough and courageous enough to leave the phone on the bedside table and just pad outside to get some morning light. I mean, the difference between those two starts of the day, how would you describe that?
Oh, immense. So I don't look at my phone before I go outside. I even try to avoid as much as possible turning on overhead lights. So I like, as much as possible, I like the first light that I get to be the natural light from outside. If you find that you cannot go without looking at your phone first thing, and I would strongly advise people to give it a go, to whatever it takes mentally to not have to stare at their phone. And I completely get some of the people, the sort of people that will be listening to this podcast are people that have early morning clients. So they'll want to know if there's been cancellations or changes or illnesses or whatever, and they'll want to check their messages. So if you cannot go without looking at your phone, then getting yourself a pair of blue blocking glasses is something, and I know it sounds gimmicky, I know it sounds like a fad, but they can make a really big difference to your hormonal health and your circadian health, as well as to the input of light coming into your body. So I thoroughly recommend people, if they're not already onto it, to follow Sarah Kleiner on Instagram or Facebook, Sarah Kleiner Wellness. She has a lot of information. It's information you can access for free, plus really quite reasonably priced webinars about this particular topic. And she also has some downloads where you can get some information about the sort of blue blocking glasses you need, because there's clear ones, there's yellow for during the day, there's orange and red ones for at night. So getting more information than we've got time to go into here, have a look for Sarah Kleiner, Kleiner, and you can get a lot of really good information through her.
Thanks for that. I'm glad you've got that kind of other thing for the people that are almost handicapped by their phones on a daily basis. At least there are other ways forward, rather than just, well, you're on your own then if you can't sort that out and get yourself some natural data. So, and Cassie Huckabee is obviously saying anytime during the day, getting yourself some natural light is a beneficial thing. So that's a really cool thing. So let's unpack. There are so many things in your morning routine that you talked about there. I mean, talk about habit stacking, a la James Clear. Talk about habit stacking. You're like the master at it, because you're outdoors in the natural light in the mornings, whether the sun's out or not. It's like that early part of the day. I know you because you're a barefoot girl, so you go, okay, then you're barefoot, so you've got grounding, you've got dancing, which has a physical benefit, but it also has a benefit of raising your emotional state. And then and so you've talked about joy there, you've talked about lymph there, you've talked about the vagus nerve there. So, and you talk about mobility, which is another part of movement, right? So you've got mobility and dancing, but I know the dancing, does that take place after the lymph stuff? So
Usually, yes,
you do a little lymph protocol on your body?
I do. So let me just back up a little bit here, because I know a lot of people will be thinking, oh, you know, heaven's sake, I'm up at 5 o'clock to train clients already, or some people even earlier.
Yeah.
You know, what are you asking me to do here? Get up an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes earlier. Let me say that a lot of my morning routine, although I had bits and pieces going and ad hoc, it really solidified during our lockdown period. So I was at home anyway. I had a lot of time, and so I developed this habit. And I admit, I hand up, I admit that I had the time to do it. So I'm not suggesting, you know, you guys don't have a morning routine. Well, boo-hoo. It's something that I had the time and the interest in the passion to develop. So the first thing I do is splash cold water on my face and the back of my neck for 20 to 30 seconds. So it's almost like, hey, body, we're up, we're going. You know, we're not just sort of padding through the house to get something and then go back to bed. We're up, we're starting our day. Then I do structured water, and just depends on what I have available at my fingertips as to what I structure it with. But I also practice a little gratitude over my water, which structures it anyway. That's going a little bit woo-woo, but I'm sure we've got a few woo-woo people out there. And then I head outside, with or without the dog.
Let me get you to pause there for a moment, because some people might think that structured water is like hexagonal water or something. It's actually just putting a little drop of something to make it more recognizable by the body, right? So it's like a pinch of salt, or a, you know, if you're into essential oils and you're comfortable, you know, ingesting, then you might put a drop of essential oil in there, a squeeze of lemon juice. So that'll all kind of create structured water and make it more recognizable to the body. Is that the kind of, would that be the shortened version of what you're talking about there?
Yes, for sure. And like I said, you know, for those who are a little more woo-woo, you can structure it with your thoughts as well. So you can say a little prayer, a wee meditation, or just a gratitude, or even surround that water with whatever color light comes to mind first thing in the morning. So yeah, you can structure water any of those ways. I usually do add a drop of essential oil or salt and lemon juice from a fresh lemon in my
And
water.
gratitude is like one of the, I mean, if you go into the whole energetic side of things, gratitude is one of the highest vibing things, you know, like activities that we can do in terms of our mental and emotional space. You know, I believe, I correct me if I'm wrong, but gratitude would be a higher vibration than love. Something along like that. I've heard it might be Dr. Joe Dispenza or something that where I learned that. But you might be able to correct me on that.
I'm not sure which is higher vibing. I know that authenticity is probably the highest vibing.
Yeah, how cool is that? Being yourself.
Absolutely.
The highest vibing. Oh my goodness. It's just like, oh, it's such a cool personal gratification of stuff that I've been talking about for about 10 years. So I'm a bit excited by that.
Yeah, for sure. And look, and that's one of the reasons why I don't mind what my neighbors think of me, because and I'm not talking about aesthetic dancing here. I'm talking about joyful dancing. You've seen me dancing. Sometimes it looks like an out of control helicopter. But
Octopus,
that,
really, I would say.
oh, okay, octopus. I'll remember that for tomorrow. But yeah, so for me, that's being authentically me. And so that's one of the reasons why I do it. And it's not like I wait until my neighbors walk past or reverse out in their cars and then dance in their face. It's just something I do. And if they happen to catch a glimpse, well, so be it. And they all know me by now. So it's fine. And I don't mind what sort of label they put on me, because it's not about them in the end, is it really?
That's really great. There's a story of a lady in the north of England, and she was, quite obese and she had a few health challenges, and she was advised to start exercising, and she was just looked at exercise and thought, that's awful. What do I like to do? And then she ended up like, settling on, well, I'd really like to dance. I really love music and dance. So, but what she took to doing was she would walk the streets of her town. You have to look this one up, people, because I can't remember which town, but I feel like it was somewhere in the middle, like Sheffield, somewhere like that. And she dance walks the streets with her headphones on, and she thought she would be roundly laughed at. But what happened is people started tooting their horns and waving, and so she ended up with this massive amount of support, and she lost, like, it would have been, in, God, I'm just thinking in stone. I think she lost about 5 stone or something like that. So 5 stone, what would that be in kilos? Lots.
Yeah.
Technical term. And it was incredible. But there you go. You've got authenticity and movement there, and then you've got joy, which is another layer of what we're talking about right here. It really, really works. And I wonder if she'd have just started an exercise program, whether she'd have had anything like, number one, that result, but number two, consistency. Would that have been sustainable for her to do something that she doesn't like? This was more sustainable, and she had to go out onto the streets and risk the wrath of social rejection to do it, but she was being her highest self, i.e. herself.
Bless her. I love that story. And for someone to lose over 30 kilos by dancing in the streets is wonderful. And she probably also reduced a lot of inflammation in her body by doing something that's so joyous, and then eventually getting so much positive feedback from people. That has got to have an amazing influence on your health and well-being, right?
So much. So we talked a lot about early morning light because it's so powerful, but now we've attached other things to the morning thing. So before you even go outside, you've got your structured water. You've got cold water. Is that the cold water on the face and the back of the neck? Is that almost to induce a similar thing to what people would do in an ice bath, or is it literally just part of your I'm awake to the world?
A bit of both, JP. Even like putting any body part under cold water. So, for people who
Careful.
Oh, it brings to mind that Seinfeld episode. So putting any body part under cold water, for instance, people that are at the office, they're maybe not going to want to splash their face if they've got full makeup on their face, or they're wearing, suit and tie because they don't want to get their clothes wet. So just even running your hands under cold water can induce a vagus nerve effect. And, people think of vagus nerve as being calming, like, is that going to send me to sleep? But no, it's making you more like a boss, more productive, more creative, more able to go out there and do what you do to your best ability with lowered stress but higher productivity. So yeah, that's the reason for the cold water is to, and for me, yes, it's like, hey, well, we're awake, we're starting the day. but it does have that parasympathetic effect.
Cold water on the outside of your body, structured water going onto the inside of your body, a gratitude, which we know from positive psychologists is like one of the 5 biggest things that you can possibly do for your mental health and your happiness. So you've got that before you've even really got going. Then you've got natural light, early morning light.
Yeah.
You're barefoot, so you're getting some grounding benefits there as well. And then before you get onto the kind of dancing, joy producing part, you're doing mobility work, and you're doing, I'm assuming, some of Dr. Perry Nicholson's lymphatic work as well, which is, you know, we're talking to him on the podcast as well, so he'll do the detail. But can you give us like what is that like? Does it take minutes, or is there a really quick way to access that, for example?
You can do your lymphatic stimulation in as little as 30 seconds if you like. Dr. Perry will elaborate on this, but he has what he calls the big 6, the 6 sites on the body that you can just do 5 slaps on. So you're starting on your left collarbone, then right, then along the jawline behind the ear, armpits and pecs, abdominal region, groin region, and behind the knees. So they're the 6 sites. And depending on the morning and how I'm feeling, I will probably do a little bit of light stimulation before I tap. So that's the sort of lymphatic work that I do. It's quite quick and simple. And I will also include a vagus nerve type activity, which for me is usually some sort of tummy massage or throat massage or tapping before I do my mobility work.
All right. So you've gone into that, you've gone out, you come out of the house, you're barefoot, you're already grounding, you're getting that beautiful energy from you know, and you're obviously finding some grass for this, because it's, you know, I've heard from Dr. Emily Splickle that wet concrete will actually you'll still be able to ground through wet concrete, and when I say wet concrete, I mean concrete that's hard, not wet concrete as in don't walk over people that have just concreted a pathway or a driveway. I mean concrete that's had some rain on it, enables you to connect through the ground underneath that concrete as well. So we've got that beautiful kind of effect on that. Then you're in the early morning light, you're doing a bit of lymphatic stimulation, maybe a minute or 2, and then you go into some mobility, because the other thing, other than stimulating our lymphatic system to kind of almost kick in and start working, it also needs movement to move around the body, because we don't have a lymphatic heart, do we? So then the movement comes in to help, you know, start, boost the process, I'm assuming, from a lymphatic perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fluids in general, I guess, is what you're talking about there.
Yeah, for sure. So the lymphatic tapping and rubbing and whatever on the big 6 comes first, and then the jumping and moving around. And I include some breath work, what I call piston breathing, which is pretty much just jumping up and down on the spot, breathing in time with the jumping. And that's where the dancing comes in as well. And then I'll do some other breath work. But we did forget a really important part of my morning routine, which happens every morning regardless, and is very vagus nerve stimulating. And we forgot that. I'm sorry, Rusty.
Okay, I know where you're going. Okay, yeah, keep going.
So my dog usually wakes up when I'm splashing my face. He knows it's the time to start the day as well. And so I will call him over, because he's in training at the moment, so he's only allowed to get attention when I initiate it. So I call him over and we have our morning cuddle and pat and stretch and how are you going kind of thing. And that warms my heart, because he'll sort of like moan and groan and stretch with hey, you know, I'm excited that you're up and our day started too. So for me, that's a big thing. My puppies are a huge part of my day and my life. So that gives me that burst of oxytocin as well. So
Well, you've just done a beautiful segue there, because we've talked, morning light, we've talked, water, structured water, we've talked lymphatic protocol, we talked movement to boost that, we've talked about dancing, being barefoot and grounding. Dancing also has the knock-on effect of joy. Now you're talking about another topic, which is connection, right? So, when people, I've talked about connection a lot myself, but it tends to be always about human connection. And I think connection is a bigger piece than just being around people that you love or connecting with people that you love. And you've already started the process there. So pets are as important, and for some people more important than the people they've got around them at that point in time, because it's unconditional love and connection. And it's, weirdly, as humans, we're so privileged because it's almost on tap when we have pets.
yes, yeah.
And then you've got connection with your environment. You've got so outdoors, you've got natural light, and the connection piece for you, how broad ranging is it?
Well, my as I've said, my dogs are a huge part of my life, but connection with other humans. And I will say, I'll put my hand up to say that while we were in lockdown, and I'm not a really strong rule follower, I follow my beat to my own drum, but I became a bit of a happy hermit because there were a lot of people in my circle that were not comfortable with connection. So I became a bit of a happy hermit, just doing my own thing and not connecting with people. And I realized that the connection, not just with my animals, but with other humans, was vital. And I think that you have your fingers on that long-term study that showed that meaningful social connection is the number one factor involved in longevity and the feeling of a happy life. So my connection is not always face to face. Sometimes it's messaging my friends and having banter and interaction with my friends online. But yeah, that meaningful social connection is super important. And it's one thing that I have to make an effort to include in my day.
So we've got pets, people, environment, nature. I mean, I think everyone kind of knows that connection, but we probably aren't prioritizing it enough. So we've got environmental connection. And then there's some kind of deeper stuff really when it comes to connection. How would you describe that?
I feel that one of the reasons why we as a whole seem to be experiencing so much chronic disease and lack of thriving these days is because a lot of us have lost our connection to our spirituality, and whatever that means. I mean, it's very, very personal and individual to each human. For me, it's having that connection with Creator, with God. For some people, that's not what their belief is, but we all have a deeper spiritual side to ourselves. And I feel that it's really important for us to explore that and to find that and to connect into that spiritual side of ourselves, whether we consider it the higher self, the Creator, the collective human consciousness, whatever that is for us. That's a really important aspect to explore. Otherwise, when times get tough and, when we're not feeling so positive and fabulous, it generally, we can find ourselves slipping downwards towards despair. And so I feel that discovering what our spiritual connection is for ourselves, and to keep that, to find a way, whether it's through prayer or meditation or even gratitudes or journaling or conversations, deep conversations, that side of ourselves is very, very important to keep healthy and nourished.
That's pretty powerful, that. And I think a lot of people would might consider themselves completely non-religious. I would be among those as well. And I think whilst I was, I'm in my 50s now, so I've had a bit of time to think about it. But let's reverse up just 20 years. I'll be describing myself as an atheist. And so what I think I was missing at that point was, you can be non-religious, but that doesn't mean that you're not spiritual and you're not connected to something bigger than yourself. So there's lots of ways of being, religiously atheistic, for example. I'm just trying to reassure those people that are just going, oh, well, I don't even believe in God, right? But you can be atheistic, religiously speaking, but still be very deeply connected. And that's how I describe my situation nowadays, because, I do think that there's a universal human consciousness, and I do think there's some kind of universal energy that I don't understand, but there's a lot of things that also happen that I can't explain from the physical world and physical sciences, for example. So there has to be something kind of beyond that. So for me, it's a feeling. Like, it's literally just that. I have an awareness that there is something that my very basic senses aren't good enough at defining, but it's something. And if you can just spend some time in that feeling, again, this is all for the people that are find it much more difficult to connect to that space. That for me is, spend some time in that feeling. Flow state and that feeling, by the way, are very similar. So if you've found yourself in flow state in your time, that's about as close as you're going to get to the feeling and that connection into that very powerful otherness that exists for all of us. We just describe it in different ways. And a lot of people have found it through religious practice. And that, again, is completely fine. But like what I think you're saying is, spend some time in that part of connection. We've got the pets, and we got the humans, and we got the environmental, but the other thing is, whatever you would describe your spiritual connection or your otherness, there's deep power in that. And I guess that's connected into authenticity too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't describe myself as a religious person. I grew up in quite a religious household. And I sort of developed my own, I guess I developed my own feelings of faith, if you like, as there was a lot of hellfire and brimstone, and if you don't do the right thing, you'll burn in hell, which just did not ring true for me. We're talking about this, or this being that has created us and is supposedly full of love. He's not going to leave us burn in hell. So I've over the years kind of developed and anyone that's still with us, who doesn't think of themselves as religious, who doesn't have any kind of higher being type of belief, as JP said, that sometimes that is just connecting into yourself, into your feelings, and that can be done through just mindfulness, going through your day with mindfulness, or even stopping and meditating. I feel like even sometimes, walking outside and just watching the wind play in the leaves of the trees is very meditative, and it really connects me back to source too. So it's not necessarily having a specific faith or belief. It's just finding that within yourself. But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't describe myself as religious, says she who is up every morning doing this almost religious kind of morning routine. But that kept me sane through lockdowns. And I have this belief that if I do it every day, I'll be able to do it every day. So, for instance, part of my morning routine is sitting down on the ground without using hands or knees or anything, just getting myself down and then getting myself back up again without using my hands or knees or elbows. And I feel like if I want, if I want to live to a healthy older age, then those little things that I do every day, hopefully I'll continue to be able to do them every day. And I've wandered a little bit off topic there, but yeah, I think you get what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And if people want to know the ground to standing thing, look up the Brazilian study on aging, and that'll give you the test, and test yourself and test your clients if you wish to for that one. The other study that Linda was talking about earlier, about the longevity study, the people that live the longest, healthiest lives have the number one factor in that is good social relationships. That's the Harvard study that ran for, I think it's still going, to be honest with you, because I think they took a 740, I believe, it was men at the time who were at college, so they've been 1920, and they literally tracked them every year till they died. So it was a pretty complete study, and now they're working on their kids, so they're continuing the study and taking their kids through the kind of same thing. But good social relationships, above whether they smoked, drank, diet, exercise routines, it outdid all of them as a marker for healthier, longer existences, or not, if they have poor social relationships. Now, I'm going to try and hang on to you for about another 10 minutes, because we haven't really touched upon something else that is going to kind of mess with people's heads. And I think it's good to kind of leave people thinking about this stuff. And that is, we've talked about your life is your medicine. And we've talked about these things that you use as medicine, that's, as far away from popping pills as you can possibly be. These great things that we can all do really simply, in probably, if you added them all up together, 10 minutes across the day. Yes. Then what does that mean if your life is your medicine and so many people are diseased? The other part of your philosophy, I know, is that whatever is happening in your body, or what is ever manifesting, I should say, in your body, is a result of what medicine or not you may be doing. And one of the weirdest things I've ever seen you post, and I say weird, what I mean more is thought-provoking, is you put something like, what if your disease is your body trying to help you? What if cancer is part of the cure? And there's these little statements that keep popping up from different kind of things that you share. And I'm like, whoa, it's such a different way of thinking about what's happening, because we just think, oh, we've got this thing wrong, in inverted commas, in our body, and we need to battle against it, or we need to find the antidote, the thing that is the opposite of it, to make it go away again. But you talk about that's your body trying to help. So can you elaborate on that? Because I don't think I've described it very well. And just talk about that, because I'd love just to get people thinking about that whole kind of topic. I know we've kind of changing tack slightly, but it's so fascinating.
It absolutely is. So your body is always on your side. Your body is never going to turn on you and suddenly decide to create disease or discomfort for no reason. It's usually responding to something. And the more I have been in the functional health realm, the more I see that most of our dis-ease, our chronic illness, comes from stress and emotional, mental, psycho-emotional stress. But for instance, if we have symptoms of a cold, and that's not chronic illness, if we have symptoms of a cold, it's usually the symptoms are the healing. So the body is not being sick or being against us if we have a runny nose or congested chest or sore throat, that kind of thing. It's usually the symptoms are the body trying to heal itself, to detox from whatever it is that we've been eating or thinking or feeling or drinking, or, you know, so any input that's coming into our body is always dealing with. A lot of the inputs coming into our body enhance its ability to thrive and survive. And some of the inputs coming in, and like I said, a lot of the inputs that the body tries to deal with are coming from thoughts, which create feelings, create emotions, beliefs, etc. They create feelings in our body. So for instance, you know that when you're experiencing extreme stress, or, driving your kids to school and you're running late and there's traffic and so on, where do you feel that in your body? Some people feel it in their jaw, some people feel it in their chest, some people feel it in their stomach. Some people find that they're clenching tighter and tighter. So we're feeling and experiencing and manifesting physical responses to a mental, emotional input. So when we are experiencing symptoms, and sometimes those symptoms can appear quite serious, usually the more serious symptoms, or the more frightening or scary symptoms, are because we've ignored, or we've masked, or we've tried to dampen down more minor symptoms. So for instance, I remember Don Tolman, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a health guru from the US.
Mm-hmm.
He describes it as, you ignore the sniffle and you mask that with medication. So the body tries to get rid of it through purging via vomiting or by diarrhea, and we take medications and we plug that up. So then the body's got to get rid of the toxins some other way. So it creates skin issues, and then we put creams on our skin. So the body creates these little rubbish bins inside to house these toxins, and those little rubbish bins can become tumors, which we feel the need, like we've got to cut these tumors out because they're, that's what's creating the disease, not realizing that that's the body's coping mechanism. And maybe we should trace all the way back to see what has created our body's need to produce and develop these tumors or these rubbish bins for toxins. So, and that's just a really a basic explanation, I suppose, but that's the kind of process that goes on in our body. It's always fighting for us. It's always doing its best to have us live our best life. And it can only deal with the inputs that we put into it, which is why, and Dr. Cassie explains some of this stuff very poetically and beautifully. If you want to take a follow of her, your life is your medicine. It just rings so true for me. And you have a look at yourself and the people around you and what's going on for them. Often it's easier to see what's going on for other people and where their dis-ease or ill health or chronic conditions are coming from. And often you trace it back to something that is not necessarily physical. It could be a relationship. It could be going to work for 8 hours in a little cubicle with artificial light at a job that they hate. So there's a lot of input that is not necessarily just diet and movement and so on that can affect us and the way that we operate in this world.
It really is fascinating, this idea that a disease state, or a dysfunction in some way, is your body helping you get to a point where you can be, healthy, in inverted commas, again, as opposed to something that is attacking us and we need to fight back. It's just such a different, it's like, oh, right, I've got this thing going on. I need to run with it. I need to understand why I'm detoxing in this way, why my body is giving me these symptoms, and then work on that underlying thing. And I don't think you'd have got me believing this 20 years ago, but I know I've had a number of things happen along the way where I've been kind of ill in inverted commas, but I know that it's come from a non-physical source. For example, I've just gone through that. And I've also had a number of clients. So as you know, I tend to see people who have had, something chronic going on, a body pain or a body dysfunction somewhere along the line. So a thing that prevents movement, healthy movement. And they'll come and see me after they've seen everyone else, or the specialists and stuff. And I'll take a mental, emotional, physical view. And a lot of people have similar profiles. So if they come in with frozen shoulder, my first question, shockingly, isn't anything to do with physical anymore. It's like, have you experienced some form of emotional loss in the past 12 months? Because 90% of the people that I see with frozen shoulder have experienced, severe grief of some description. That's not just loss as in, someone has died. That could be loss of a friendship or loss of themselves in some way. There's different ways of looking at it. Or they've had a baby, there's a loss to the body. So I see that. And there are a number of different things, shoulder dysfunctions and things like that, where I'm like, okay, then can we take a full set of questions rather than, okay, then what physically have you been doing, and what, do you know anything that might have done that, and what are you doing repetitively as movement? Whereas actually it's a life issue that's showing up in their body as a physical movement dysfunction, for want of a better term. It's actually a life issue that's creating that. And then if we can give them clarity around that, that already starts their process out of the other side. Remembering that, a lot of practitioners will say, well, if the symptoms are there, it means that you're already on the way to healing. And I know that's your belief, is that if symptoms are there, then that's your body, yes, saying, look at me, but also it's okay, we're going to heal you.
And it doesn't mean that you sit back on the couch with your feet up and allow your body to just keep producing symptoms. And obviously, if you need to rest and recover, probably having your feet up on the couch is a good thing, but it's your body's request for change. So scan your life, have a look whereabouts in your life is there a request for change. I earlier this year I did an exercise with our friend Karina Schilling, which came up with the fact that I felt I needed more adventure in my life. Now, I don't always have the capacity every week to go out and climb mountains or bushwalk, but I can find and create that adventure in, lots of smaller ways. So that was one thing for me. I needed adventure. I felt like, as much as I love life, that there was that little thing that I needed to change, that I needed to add, that I needed that outlet. For someone else, it might be something completely different. It is different for all of us, which is what, where the magic is. The body is so brilliant, and part of its brilliance is speaking to us and tapping us on the shoulder before things get really messed up. And if you look back through your life, if you're suffering from a chronic condition, if you look back through your life, you might be able to identify, where did this thing start? Often it will be from something that happened that we made mean something. And it doesn't mean that you experience like severe trauma, but it might be something happened and you made it mean something. Like you woke up on the morning of your birthday when you were 5, and your older brother forgot to say happy birthday first thing, and you made it mean that you weren't important, or whatever it is. It can be different for everybody. And that didn't happen to me, by the way. I just made that up on the spot. But but you know what I'm saying. It's two people can experience exactly the same thing, and one person is a traumatic event, and the other person doesn't even remember it. It's water off a duck's back. So yeah, whatever it is for you. But our body is, just as I said, it's brilliant, and it's, as part of its brilliance, it is creating ways to get rid of whatever it is that it needs to get rid of, and to take on whatever it needs to take on, and to give us those signals that we need to be better at hearing and listening to, and making change that needs to be made. And sometimes it's not easy. You know, we all hear that saying that choose your hard. You know, doing movement every day can be hard, it can be challenging, it can be uncomfortable, but then so is being overweight and chronically ill. And so choose your hard.
That's awesome. Great advice. And I know, you know, your process, if someone is needing help and they like, I wouldn't even know where to start with finding what's going on. I know you basically take a life history and ask all sorts of broad ranging, varied question, you know, deep and, you know, superficial as it were. And it takes you 1 to 2 hours just to go through that process, just so you can start pinpointing, okay, then where was, as you know, in your, I know you use these words like in inverted commas, like where was the first insult to the system, as it were. So you're looking at that, and you're looking at, you know, was there childhood trauma, through to what type of, you know, illnesses might they have had at different stages of their life. Maybe it could, the same manifestation of symptoms now could be as a result of trauma for one person, glandular fever for another, and, you know, a motorbike accident for another, all at different stages of their life, but they could actually be manifesting very similar symptoms, because it can come from lots of different sources, and it depends upon how we individually take that on board. So anyway, if you're dealing with any of that, by the way, I would highly recommend you reach out to Linda if you want to kind of go through that process, because I think you'll be really surprised as to what that adds into the mix in terms of how you might get beyond your set of symptoms, because it can be completely transformational in your life. So if we say your life is your medicine, is that currently what you might call your tagline for life at the moment, or is there something else that you kind of live by?
It really sums up where I'm at the moment. Your life is your medicine. And as I said, I thank Dr. Cassie Huckabee for that. It just really rings true. And the thing that I really like about it is it holds each individual accountable for their own health and well-being. It's not something that you can outsource to a doctor or a chiropractor or a physiotherapist or any number of allied health professionals that you can think of. It is our own responsibility. So, you know, my life is my medicine, but what medicates me, what makes me feel good, is not going to be the same as even people in my own family. So it's up to each individual to take that responsibility and to really do the hard work to have a good look at what needs to change and what you need to take out of your life or add into your life. Very difficult to do, I know, when you're a parent of small children, because your life is not your own all of the time, but you can still apply this. And it takes a bit of determination and grit to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I am one of those people with small children, and I would say it's almost like my life is full of saboteurs on my life. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. We've all got our responsibilities. And I'm going to finish with something. I know a lot of people finish with a really light-hearted question that kind of what's their favorite body position for watching tennis or something. But mine is going to be something a little bit more seismic. Tell me, what do you want? This is a life question, right? What do you want for yourself and everyone else?
What I want for all of us is that we feel we're living our best life. And whether that means better health, whatever health is, right? That's going to mean different things to all of us. But to be able to live our best life, what do we need? What is it what maybe you're already living your best life, and that's fabulous. In which case, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to take it one step further? How are you going to help other people live their best life? So that's what I'd like to see for all of us, to feel those moments of joy in our day. And obviously we're not all going to be living in joy. That you probably burn out if you did that. But you know, what are we going to do to make sure we have moments of joy? What are we going to do to make sure that we feel like we're growing and contributing and connecting with others? So yes, that's what I'd like to see for myself, for you, for everyone, is living our best life.
It's a great identifier of what you need to then do to make that happen, because it's like, okay, then I want to live my best life. So how do I do that? What needs help in order for me to be able to do that? It kind of cuts to the chase for us all, I guess. So anyway, Linda, it's been fascinating. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and immense knowledge and kind of your unique take on the world. And if anyone wants to contact you, I'll put your contact details in the mix for the podcast. But in the meantime, I'll say from me and from everyone else, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, JP, and thank you to FitPro people for listening.
All the best.
Thank you.